Welcome to the Laurent Collective podcast, where we go deeper than just surface talk.
Each week, we'll explore everything from family, business, creativity, culture, and faith.
To make sure not to miss an episode, be sure to subscribe and hop on to Instagram at Laurent Collective to chat with us about this episode.
Hello.
Hello, we're back.
We have our tea, and we're
Yes.
ready to chat about something difficult, kind of. It's
It is difficult. For sure, it is difficult.
We are going to talk about our fighting styles in our marriage, and we thought this would be a good topic just because, we are going on 19 years of marriage. Yes, 19 years. We'll be 19 years
we're going
married.
20 is coming up.
This July, we'll be married for 19 years.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, this past July. Yes, this coming July will be 20.
Oh,
Oh my Lanta. All right.
yes, that's right.
So
Okay, so there
we're
you
kind
go.
of fighting right now, I guess.
Usually it's the guy that doesn't remember how many years it is, and here we are. Okay, yeah, we'll have
We
been
were married in 2002.
Yes.
And next year will be 2022.
Okay, I'm confused on the years. You're right. I'm not confused on the year we got married. Let me be clear on that. I'm confused
Are
on
you
the
sure?
year that we are
Because
currently in right now. It's been a bit of a blur. Okay, so
Yes.
reset on that.
Reset.
Going on 20 years of marriage. Is that the right way to say it then?
Yes.
Great.
It will be 20
We've clarified
years
that
of
now.
marriage next year.
Okay. So because of that, we are believers that there are some people that think if you fight at all in your marriage, that something's drastically wrong. And we often use this phrase with our kids. Like if we are in an argument, we will say, do you love your brothers and sisters? Brother or sister, whoever we're talking to. And they will say yes. And we're like, do you not get along with them sometimes? And of course they say yes.
Do you get annoyed?
Do you get annoyed
Yeah.
and things like that? And so we remind them, like, we live together 24/7. We're together a lot. We are going to get in arguments and that kind of thing. It does
We
not
work together a
mean-
lot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we do a lot
We
together.
do.
That it does not mean we don't love each other. It just means we have some things to work through. And so for us, we think it's, you have to figure out how to have disagreements with one another. Fighting sounds bad, but
Yeah.
it
is
is
a
what it
weird
is.
word.
It's
It is a
having
weird
a
word.
disagreement,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. And so whether it's called fighting styles or argument styles, whatever it is, we came from vastly different backgrounds and stuff, and we have learned some things. We are not perfect in this. We will always say that.
Yeah, like we said, we've been married that long, but at the same time, it's
Things
always a
ebb and flow
learning
and
process.
change. Yeah.
Like for sure.
Yeah.
And, we've basically grown up together in a sense.
We have. We got married
in a lot of ways. So
Well, let's see. I was 20. Now we're going to give away our ages. So we just said what year we got married. That's all right.
Early
I'm
20s.
I'm confident. You were mid-20, honey. You were 24. I was 23.
24, yeah.
You were just about ready to turn 25. So saying that, like Pat said, we have very much grown up together in many ways because that is pretty young to get married. At least, we think it's young.
It's young.
So to start off, give a bit of a background at the beginning of our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way we both had different ways that when a disagreement came up or we were angry with one another, that we dealt with how we wanted to address that issue drastically different. And then because we dealt with the issue drastically different, that caused another issue. And so I think that's something to be very aware of how you tend to deal with conflict, or, trying to work through the conflict basically is super important. And for us, that really came through and understanding our backgrounds. And it often comes from the families you've grown up with and things like that and how your family handled conflict. And so,
or just how you
or you
observed,
learned,
or you
observed,
the-
or maybe
yeah.
you learned how to handle it, or you picked up something you didn't want to do, or
Yeah,
those kind
exactly.
of things. And so for us, when we would get into any kind of disagreement in the beginning of our marriage, I would bolt. and I don't say I mean like I would run, like, but
Well,
I
I mean,
let me explain. Let
okay,
me explain.
sorry.
I would
sorry.
often, we'd get to a certain point in the conversation, and I was afraid I was going to say something I didn't mean, or I didn't understand how I was too heated, basically. I didn't have words. I now will use the word later of what I have for what I was feeling, but I was too heated and I was afraid I was going to say something I didn't want. So I would just get in the car and I would drive. I'd either drive to calm down or I would go drive to like a store and walk around or whatever it would be. But like I never told Pat where I was going.
No, I mean,
I would just leave.
Again, we were young in our marriage, like coming into it, and yes, we had our disagreements, and we did have some pretty epic fights, I would say,
while we were engaged
and stuff. But like living together and fighting and like all that kind of stuff was different. Like I would say it felt different, And so the fact that you would just get into a car, like if there was a disagreement or something, that you would just get in the car and leave. Like I was confused. I was like, wait, are you coming back? Like,
and this is really before like
over. Like it was really confusing.
Yeah, and this was before like texting and things like that a little bit too. So
you'd
exactly. have to call me and
like
I just wouldn't answer. We had phones.
Had cell phones, but
we had flip phones, I believe.
Yeah, but I think early on for me, I think I wanted to kind of just get it over with. Like talk about it. I wanted to work it through, and I just wanted to move on. I think in some ways. Where, again, you wanted to avoid it and go away.
Well, let me be clear. I didn't want to avoid it completely. I needed to calm down before we could have the conversation.
No.
I feel like I wanted to eventually talk about it.
Because the things that I think you probably wrestled with, right, is like the dynamic that was hard for you is like you just wanted it to kind of go. I felt like you always wanted it to go away.
Yeah, okay, it's true. I will say at the very beginning, I did just want it to go away.
And for it to go away, you just left it. Yeah. And then you came back
and I wanted to come back and it be not a big deal. That I was like, I'm fine now, even if I wasn't fine. That was at first. And then, maybe that's why I was having, that kind of feels like so long ago to me. Well, it was a long time ago.
It was a long time.
But that was the dynamic that was going on. And it took us a while to figure out what was going on to the point that like, Pat wanted a conclusion to things, and I was just like, I don't want to have a fight. Like, I don't want to have an argument. I just need to calm down, and I'll be fine, and it'll be fine. And like, granted,
and it just goes away.
Yeah, granted, there are some things that legit like that is the case. Like, I got heated, and I realized actually what I was heated about, like that was stupid, and that didn't merit an argument. And then you feel weird. I mean, we've all done that, where you realize like, actually, why am I even angry about? Like, you could be in a bad mood. Something's happened at work. Kids, whatever it is. Those situations do happen. And sometimes it is you walk away and you come back and then you're like, that was dumb of me. Sorry.
Yeah.
But there are definitely other times where there are things that need to be worked through, or it's a reoccurring thing or something like that needs to be worked through. And so at first, I just tried to use that same method with that and avoid it as well.
Yeah.
But as we grew in our marriage and as we had people and we, went through counseling and stuff like that, I realized that what I needed to do was to figure out what we were dealing with here. Like, is this an issue that actually I've realized it's not a big deal to me and I don't know how we got into this argument? Or
which
is it
most times we do?
Which I know
For
sometimes
both of us,
we're like, why are we arguing right now? And often it we even had this recently, both of us were feeling really like sad about some things. Like, for instance, like we haven't found a house to live in yet and that kind of thing. And so like both of us were feeling really sad and down about that. And we had found something that was super promising and then we found it wasn't available and it was like gut wrenching for both of us. And then that week we got into a pretty big argument. And then when we were able to get on the other side of it, we realized like there were so many other emotions going on about other things that we got in this other argument about, and it wasn't truly about that thing. So anyways, to say that we eventually figured out that something that was happening for me, and it does happen for you too, but it definitely happens for me more commonly, is the idea of flooding. And so what that is like what I talked about of like earlier saying I was afraid, I was so heated, I was afraid I was going to say something that I didn't really mean, but because I was so angry in that moment, I was so flooded to the brim that I would say things I didn't mean. I wouldn't be able to work out the conflict in a normal way or like any kind of logical way. Like I was just, and you guys know that, you get that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, like the word says, when you flood, things overflow. And other things start to come up and all that stuff that really it's not helpful to the situation, which only worsens the situation. So if you continue to overflow and flood, it just makes it worse.
Yes.
Where if you can identify that, which is something that we've learned, you can realize I'm about to flood, and if I get to that point and it tips over the edge, it could get bad, but I'm going to step away from the situation and I'll come back to it.
That's the key right there,
I think
coming back.
I think what we've realized is we both have understood what that brim, that tipping point is.
Well, sometimes,
to some extent,
yes.
to some extent.
In ourselves.
We're
not always good at picking up on the other person.
Yes, that's it. That we've kind of understood that, at least in ourselves, more and better, that we're able to communicate, or we're getting better at that, of communicating and saying, look, I'm about to do this and it could create more of an issue. So this is why I need to step away, rather than early on, you would just step away completely without saying anything and not coming back to it. Mm-hmm. And again, for me in those early situations where I just wanted to sit down and just hash it out, that's not great in all situations either.
No, because sometimes you need time to think about something.
Right. Exactly. Because I think in some ways those, for me, wanting to sit down and hash it out and get it taken care of and move on, potentially could create those situations of flooding, because we early on in our marriage, because we didn't quite understand what was happening. And so I think because that situation could create that scenario.
Yeah, more. It pushed it more. Yeah,
because I was pushing. Mm-hmm. So
well, and I think we've dealt with this throughout the years in different ways and tried different things. Like I think we had a code word at one point. Mm-hmm. It was like frog or something that wouldn't be something we would be arguing about,
or
so
if
the person would understand it,
or if we were in a public situation.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. I mean, because you do get upset with people in situations that are not, and sometimes even and you've gotten much better at this, but Pat, for a while, Pat just likes to tease and stuff a little bit, kind of. And sure. Unfortunately now we have kids that are very sensitive to that as well, but you've learned through me, I don't always love that. And so sometimes even when we're in a public situation, he'll be doing something and it's everyone's kind of, and you're not, I don't think you're doing it.
It's sarcasm, but it actually
sometimes
cuts pretty deep.
Sometimes he's dealing with, sometimes he's using it as a kind of a weapon in some ways of actually I am annoyed with this thing. And I can pick up on that. And so there was a couple times where that happened when we were in a setting of a group setting. He would say something and he was oh haha and joking. I was frog, that went too far and now I'm mad at you, kind of thing. Sometimes I would just whisper it to you and you would get the hint and we would talk about it later. Mm-hmm. But again, so for me then it changed to now I just use the word flooding. We have a child that goes from 0 to 100 when he's angry. And so I think that has helped you maybe a little bit more understand me. I don't do that anymore, but he goes so quickly that we say you're flooding. I do sometimes.
Yeah.
If you could see Pat's face right now.
I think it's, you're way more,
mature in
it. You're mature in it, and you definitely see the signs and feel and understand yourself in those situations way better. And you can identify it really quick, rather than where our one son he really struggles with it and doesn't know how to, and that just only gets better. And actually, to be honest, I think because we've been able to have some certain conversations with him about it, he has been able to identify sometimes and starting to realize.
And that's what it's all about.
Cool.
If you realize that, and when I describe flooding, I mean think of the things when you're in a heated argument, and it's like almost like your is pumping a different way and that kind of thing. And like you're so upset and so angry and that kind of thing. Like nothing comes good like out of that right there.
Right.
You have to calm down. I mean, that's true in our marriage. It's true in how we parent. It's true in friendships. Like sometimes you just have to take some deep breaths. And like for us, we have learned that's where I have to be good. And sometimes same for you. You have this as well.
Mm-hmm.
And is that I need to determine like, am I ready then to have I calmed down enough to have the discussion? I have to say that to you. I have to say, look, I'm in my flooding mode right now. I can't talk about this anymore. And that is really hard when you're in a heated argument.
Yeah.
To be like, we need to stop right now. And we need to come back to it later. And so that's what has changed. Before I would say we need to stop and it's done and we're not talking about it again. Where now I will say to you, we need to stop right now.
That there is an issue.
We will get to it, but I can't do that right now. I need to calm down. And then you need to figure out what are the things that help you calm down. Like, do I need to go on a walk? What is it that I need to do? Figure those things. And that's, it's funny that I'm saying this as myself, that is the thing we have helped our son with of like, what are the things that calm you down? When you get to that point, what are the things that calm you down so then you can think normally? It's the idea of like, if you can picture a jar filled with water and then you put glitter in it. So if you let the jar sit, the glitter sifts and it goes all the way down to the bottom and everything's nice and still. So that's like, I'm ready to have a conversation. Sure, maybe there's a little bit of glitter in the water. But then if you take it and you shake it, the glitter is all over the jar. And it's like, it's like almost like a tornado of glitter. Yeah. Exactly. And so if you think of flooding in that way, it's like when you're like in that state and you can't even see how things would settle down and things, you just can't think clearly. And there's different things that can impact that of what's going on in your life, how you're feeling, like when I'm sick and stuff like that, that often is the case that I can't think clearly and all that. So it's like having that time to let the glitter settle. It may not settle all the way, but having it settle where you can then come at it at a perspective, in a different way. And I think then it's coming back together and saying, okay, let's start again. Let's have this conversation. Like, let's talk through this again in a different manner. And let's really figure out what's going on. I will say too, something we have learned over the years and advice that if you like it, that's fine and it works for you, but it does not work for us is the idea of don't go to bed angry at each other. Yeah. Some of our fights have been when we are the most tired and actually just sleeping
helps. Yeah.
Is what we need to do. Yeah. And we wake up in the morning and we're like, what? Well, why were we fighting? Like we don't even almost.
Well, or it's like, okay.
Or we're able fresh perspective and have an actual conversation.
Grab a cup of tea and let's have a conversation. And I will say too, like, your illustration of the jar, like, I mean, I think actually people actually do that with their kids. Like, I think that is a thing
we have done that, yeah.
Yeah, where you have a jar of glitter and
they sit and wait till it settles.
But I also want to say too, I think at least for us, sometimes it doesn't work the first time.
No.
I think sometimes, even if you feel calmed down or whatever, and you come back to it and you still try to have a conversation, it might not just be resolved. It might not actually work out that first time. Like there still might be some things that need to come down, I guess, in some ways.
You might flood again the second time you go through things because you're really heated about that thing.
I think that is just one thing too that I don't want to create this false perspective that, we figured it out and, you're going to flood and let me go away and then we'll come back and we'll solve it. Like that's not always how it works out. Like I think it's just helpful to understand that we're understanding our emotions and that tipping point and just getting to that point with yourself, that will be able to be a tool that you can use in your relationship that, can help you get through some of those times and just be something that is helping you communicate in a better way than screaming or,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing. It's, And you guys, we did not get to this on our own. So I want to be clear about that. Like, sure. So there's nothing wrong if you are getting to a certain point where you're like, we can't seem to get past either this issue or why are we fighting like this and arguing like this? And you do go through seasons. Like, there will be a long time where we haven't had an argument about something and then something comes up and it's like, why are we arguing? Like, and then you get all worried and stuff like that. Like, what's wrong with us and things like that. Pat goes through the like, this is the end. Like, I mean, kind of thing. Like, something's wrong with us. I'm like, this is normal. Yeah. We tell our kids that. So why are you freaking out about that right now? But there does get points where you need somebody to help you work through that stuff, where you just need somebody, like, for instance, with the flooding idea, with us figuring out, like, why are we not working on things? Why am I running? Things like that. We had to have somebody sit down with us and work through that. And that is like and it should be somebody who's trained in it too. Yeah. Sometimes like we do that for couples. I mean, and couples have done that for us, that they've sometimes sat down, and sometimes you can have a friend like help you through things, but also there are deeper issues sometimes too that take somebody who is a therapist, and there is nothing wrong with going and seeking help that way.
No, like, not at all.
We are adamant about that. And I know some people...
I guess we should say, too, we're not counselors. So
no, we are not counselors.
We're just speaking from our experience.
Exactly. And things we have learned from people who have helped us. But I think, like, often because we do, like, mentor married couples or couples that are, like, about ready to get married and stuff like that. And sometimes, and we probably were this way, too, there's, like, a shame culture, unfortunately, of, like, oh, I need to just seek out help and things like that, or that
will look bad.
That'll look bad if people know that we're like going to counseling or things like that. And like, to me, that actually says like you're working on your marriage. Like you care about it enough to do that. And I think sometimes we feel like, well, that's only if you think you're about at this point that you need to do that. And like, that's not true either. Like, it's needed throughout all kinds of different things. And so that doesn't mean if you're going and you're seeking out counseling that like you're at this certain point in your marriage where the next step is it's done. That's not true either. Yeah. Like you can do that.
It's either we're going to survive or we're not.
Yeah, you don't need to wait to that point. So sometimes it's just little things, and then it gives you the little things sometimes can add up to be the big thing. So if it's a little thing that then you seek help for and you figure out how to work through that together as a couple, that's going to help when the bigger things come up. And so, I think that's just an encouragement, like seek out help, but you don't have to wait until it gets to the point, like,
it could be,
feels like no return,
it could be something where it's like, oh, you know what, there's that thing that, it's not a huge issue now, but maybe we should talk to somebody about it, and
keeps coming up or something.
It keeps coming up, or we need a tool for, we need some sort of like, tool isn't the right word, but a thing that we can really kind of push into, that that can help us get past this, or how understand to better communicate in this way or whatever, I just think it's just super, super helpful, I think, in some ways to just, seek that out. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually more powerful, I think, to seek help and be vulnerable in that way, which I think can make such a huge difference.
Yeah, and I think something to think about too is you enter into new seasons of things that you realize are going to be like changes in how you are, partnered together and stuff like that. Like there are some obvious ones, when you first get married and like you're figuring all of that out. When you have a new baby, like that's a massive, drastic season change. I will be honest, for us, it was when we had our second child that was really difficult. There was something about going from 1 to 2. And while Zane was a difficult baby and Jude was actually a very easy baby, it was having 2 kids that we were like, what on earth? Like we were communicating horribly. There was other things going on in our life on that time too that were super stressful, and I got really sick. I mean, there were so many things that were like barreling at us at once. And then we, you guys know, we moved out of the country, and and at first it was like, this is a cool adventure. And then we hit a spot of like, this is no fun anymore. And the adjustments were really hard, and that affects your marriage and how you communicate. And so each of those steps, though, thankfully we have had friends alongside of us that are like, this is the point where you need to go talk to somebody.
Or professionals that helped and stepped in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what I mean. That they've said, okay, like, you can debrief with us, but you actually need to like seek additional help now too. Mm-hmm. And that's I want you guys to hear that, because I think sometimes people are like, oh, you guys communicate so well and you work together and things like that. Like, you're seeing certain things, like that's not how it always is.
It didn't just happen.
No. Well, and it doesn't. It doesn't still just happen.
Yeah.
Like,
totally.
Let's be clear. It's not. I think there's this idea that there's this like end goal, and like there's no end goal here. It's an always work in progress kind of thing.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not. Oh, we've figured out everything. We've opened the safe and now we know all the secrets. Like, it's going to be a constant learning process for sure.
Exactly.
It's what are they? It's just, it's a journey.
It is a journey, not a destination.
We haven't made the destination already by just getting married. Like that wasn't just the destination.
Or by getting past this season or that season, or there's always something new and always going to be something, I mean, goodness, if we all haven't learned that through COVID, like that's all, things like that happen. And that's not something we're going to expect or see coming or even be able to be prepared for, frankly. And so, yeah. So,
I think just the overall, I think again, it's been over communicating to one another, also not being afraid to ask for help, and don't wait until you feel like it's a situation where, it's the be all end all situation where, if there are little things that you just want to work through together and get better at, or whatever it is, like, and improve the relationship, like, do those things. Like, that's only going to make, when you come up to that bigger thing, it's just going to make it that much, not easier isn't the right word, but you'll be able to have the tools and be able to navigate it in a better way than if you wait till the last minute, I think. So.
Yeah, and you have to try things. I mean, because each couple is unique. Yes, and so something that will work for another couple, and how they get through things and how they work through things we can try it, but it may not work for us because our personalities are different, our backgrounds are different, how we handle things and stuff like that is different, our situation is different. And so again, that's where, and I will say too, when you seek out help in the form of a counselor and therapist, sometimes it takes a little bit to find the right person. And so you may go to somebody and both of you are like, oh no, that's not going to work for us. And that's okay too. Like, don't give up on that. I think that's something that I always encourage people is like, just because you've gone to one person, you're like, that was not a good fit. Yeah. That's exactly probably right. That was probably not a good fit then. Yeah. And then don't give up. Continue to seek out somebody else to have help from. It doesn't mean that counseling and therapy is easy, because it is hard work and you will be exhausted after it and everything like that. But there will be a right fit that you're like, oh no, this makes sense. Yeah. So don't give up on that. If that is something you've run into that you're like, nope, this isn't fitting with me. It may be that person, their style of how they do things. For sure. So seek out somebody else, and that's totally okay to do that. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, there we go.
Yeah. So we've learned some things over these almost 20 years, but we're still learning.
Exactly. And you will be
too. And we're still fighting.
Yes. Yes, we do. So we argue.
Argue?
Yeah. Yes.
Fighting is such a weird word.
I don't like that word, because that has all kinds of things in with it. But anyway, so would love to hear from you guys, as we say always. And also, can we really encourage you guys as well? We hear from so many of you who are listening and really liking things and stuff here. Please, we would love, and it's not like a vanity thing for us. It is more so other people can find our podcast and get help here and like learn and stuff like that. If you can rate and leave a review right now after you end this on this episode or another one or whatever, that's super helpful on people finding us. And we do. So
and we always want to hear from you. We always would love to hear from you and things that you want to hear from us and just all that stuff. We would love to connect with you in some ways. So. Yeah.
Wonderful. We will talk to you guys very soon.
See ya.
Take care.
Bye.
It's Christmas season, officially, kind of, I think. And that means that you can start thinking of your gift ideas for your loved ones. And we would love for you to check out Laurent Collective for those gifting ideas. There's everything on there, from mugs to t-shirts, to tote bags, to cozy hoodies and sweatshirts and prints for homes. And we think that you would be able to give a gift that's going to put a smile on someone's face. So head over to laurentcollective.com and check out the gift ideas we have for you. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Laurent Collective podcast. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review, which helps others find our podcast. Continue the conversation with us over on Instagram at Laurent Collective.
We look forward to going deeper than just surface talk with you again next week.